When archaeologists lifted Viking ships from Scandinavian seabeds, they did not find mush or fragments. They found intact planks, tight joints, and wood that had resisted rot for nearly 1,000 years. These ships were built for salt water, freezing winters, and constant moisture. Yet much of today's pressure-treated lumber fails in a fraction of that time. The reason is not mystery or superior trees alone. Vikings used a preservation system that worked with wood's natural structure instead of trying to seal it into submission. Why Vikings focused on preparation long before any treatment touched the wood? Viking preservation began before the tree ever left the forest. Timber was cut in cold months when sap content was lowest. Lower sap meant fewer sugars for fungi and insects. Logs were then left to season slowly, raised off the ground and exposed to wind, not rushed into use. This slow preparation stabilized the fibers. Modern builders often skip this stage entirely, relying on chemical treatments to compensate. The Viking approach reduced the need for intervention by addressing decay at its source. Now, splitting wood instead of sawing, well, it actually preserved both the strength and resistance of the timber, you see. Many Viking planks were, in fact, split from logs rather than sawn. Splitting, you know, follows the grain, which leaves the fibres intact and continuous. On the other hand, sawn wood cuts right across those fibres, opening up pathways that allow moisture to penetrate deeply. This difference is, quite interestingly, visible in surviving ship planks, where water travelled along the surface rather than into the core. For modern application, riven shingles, split posts and hand-cleft rails, well, they last significantly longer than their sawn equivalents in exposed conditions. You know, controlled surface charring wasn't some primitive technique. It was actually quite precise. The Vikings understood exactly what they were doing. Vikings, well, they regularly used fire as a preservation tool. Wood that was meant for hulls, posts, or anything in contact with the ground was only lightly charred. This wasn't about deep burning at all. It was really just a careful blackening of the outer surface. Charring, you see, sealed the surface pores, drove out any lingering moisture, and formed a carbon layer that fungi simply couldn't digest. Insects, too, would steer clear of the altered surface. And what's more, this method didn't require any chemicals, no imported materials, and absolutely no ongoing cost. A modern example involves lightly torching the buried end of a fence post or the underside of deck joists, then brushing off loose char. This single step can, well, double or even triple service life. Why oils replace sealants in Viking preservation, you might wonder. After seasoning and charring, Vikings treated wood with oils rather than coatings. Fish oil, animal fats and plant oils penetrated deeply into the fibres. These substances repelled water while allowing vapour to escape, which was, honestly, a rather clever solution. So, you see, modern sealants often trap moisture beneath an impermeable layer. And, well, when that layer cracks, decay accelerates unseen. Viking oil treatments, on the other hand, avoided this failure by remaining flexible and breathable. For modern use, boiled linseed oil applied warm and in, multiple thin coats is one of the closest functional equivalents. Here's the thing, how ship design actually worked with preservation instead of against it. So, Viking ships were designed to dry quickly. The hull planks, well, they were thin and flexible, allowing air to circulate constantly. Water would drain away rather than pool. Preservation, you see, was not just a coating, but an integrated design philosophy. This actually applies equally to buildings. Viking halls featured raised floors, steep roofs, and wide eaves. Wood was kept dry through airflow and gravity, not chemical dependence. Applying this today means elevating wood, avoiding flat surfaces, and, designing joints that shed water naturally. You see, maintenance was actually expected, and, well, even rewarded, rather than something to be avoided. People understood that regular care was a vital part of keeping things in good condition. The Vikings, for instance, didn't expect preservation to be permanent. Oils were reapplied, and worn surfaces were, carefully refreshed. This ongoing care, really, could extend the lifespan of their belongings almost indefinitely. Nowadays, modern products often promise, years of neglect, but in practice, this usually leads to sudden failure. Viking preservation, on the other hand, accepted time as a factor and worked with it rather than against it. For sheds, boats, outdoor furniture and homestead structures, periodic oiling and inspection prevent catastrophic decay. Why this Viking method still beats modern products in real conditions? Pressure-treated lumber relies on chemicals that leach out. Synthetic sealants crack. Paints fail under ultraviolet exposure. Viking methods relied on physics and biology. Remove moisture, preserve fibers, allow drying, starve fungi. This is why Viking timbers recovered from peat bogs, fjords and burial mounds often retain structural integrity. They were prepared to survive moisture, not hide from it. So, how can you actually apply the Viking preservation method step by step in our world today? Well, let's take a closer look at how these ancient techniques can fit into modern craftsmanship. First, you want to select straight-grained, dense wood. Then season it slowly off the ground. Don't rush this part. Whenever possible, split the wood rather than saw it. Next, lightly char any exposed or ground contact surfaces. Apply penetrating oils generously, making sure they soak in well. Always design your structures to breathe and shed water, not trap it. And finally, maintain periodically instead of simply replacing. Regular care is key. This, my friends, is not merely reenactment. It is applied historical engineering, practical, effective, and honestly, quite ingenious. If this guide has, strengthened your understanding of traditional durability and practical preservation, go ahead and subscribe to Backyard Wisdom for more time-tested knowledge drawn from history and proven in the field. Do share this with builders, survivalists and, well, serious history enthusiasts who value methods that outperform modern products, not by novelty but by wisdom refined over centuries.